Where did you feel like, oh my God, we've taken the wrong turn here?
When we just secured $1 million in funding. First sort of non-family friend sort of funding. We were roughing it right as a family. It was December 2013 and we landed this $1 million and we thought, we're made here. In the next 3 months, we sold one deal. Oh man, the pressure that put on all of us was just intense.
What did you do wrong?
Yeah, what we did wrong is...
You're into your mountain biking, all of that stuff. I wouldn't have thought you're very good at sewing, but apparently you are.
Well, it all started when I was just a young kid at high school. I basically went into a ski shop. Thought, yeah, I reckon I could build that. My mum had this old Singer sewing machine. I cracked in and I had to go up building these things. I must have broken a needle every 2 minutes. I built a set and I took it to the guy at the shop and I said, here we go, give it a go. And it worked really well. So that was the start of Expressions Windsurf, Ski and Surf, manufacturing apparel in the basement of my dad's house. My dad was super supportive and I ended up putting myself through university. I actually went over to the UK, did my IOV for 3 years. I came back and because I'd left quite a good reputation at Telecom, I was offered a job. And they said, oh yeah, we've got this service line management role, it's for security. And no one really wanted to touch it. At the time I was like, what am I doing here? But it turned out to be super exciting. You could argue that it was the first full-scale SaaS solution in New Zealand.
How did you know to quit your successful corporate job?
I really immersed myself in the problem. There's the opportunity. Build a solution for training providers who want to run their business and don't want all these different systems. It's now in 70 countries, office in Wellington, the UK, Canada, Vancouver. Like you say, process about to 500 million in transactions per annum. What we coined at the time, a trade me of learning. That's essentially what Arlo became.
Welcome to the Startup Theatre podcast. This podcast is produced by Empire Films.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to Startup Theatre. I'm Serge Van Dam, your co-host, and with me is...
I'm Adrian Muir. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. All right, so Troy is away. He's in the Middle East riding camels or doing other things to camels.
Yeah, what is he doing?
We don't really know what he's up to. But so we're hosting a friend of ours, I guess, a guy called John Mitchell, who's founder of Arlo. We've known John for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, John is he's got a really interesting background and a really equally interesting story. So I've actually wanted him to come and sit down on the couch for a long time, which I'm very excited to have him on board because he follows after some pretty interesting podcasts we've done in 2025, of course, and we haven't got Troy here at the moment, but he did do a pretty epic job down in Queenstown. I don't know. You were unfortunately not able to meet.
I was away.
Yeah, that was a real shame, Serge. We had a really good time. I know that it's going to take 2026 to a next level, but we sat down with some incredibly smart founders down there. We also had a really great panel discussion around the infrastructure, and I'd love to see us do that in other places as well this year. But more importantly, credit where credit's due. We had a really amazing opportunity to sit down with Rod Drury. And Troy nailed it. It was such a good sit down, and the feedback we've got, I mean, I don't know what sort of feedback you've had on particularly that interview, and a number of our interviews, to be fair, has been phenomenal. I don't know.
The numbers tell the story in its own right. I mean, most people know of Rod Drury from founder of Xero, but we've had hundreds of thousands of people listen or watch that episode, which tells you a lot both about Rod's prominence, but also how good a job.
Yeah, it was live. It was a live one. My job was at that point, to sit there and look at the live feed of questions coming in from people watching it live. Nada. People were like, he's amazing. This is so good. These are amazing nuggets. I was like, okay, there are no questions. Like, he just asked the right questions. He talked, at length about things that I think everyone got something out of it. And I've actually spoken to people over Christmas who have listened to it more than twice, which I think is really a credit to not only the podcast, but also to Rod and his story.
Yeah, and then my last podcast of the year was with Montu, company being sued by a company called FIS.
Right.
Pretty tragic story.
How are they doing?
Yeah, but we had the founders and co-CEOs here. We've had a lot of feedback about that, support, people want to take action, people wanting to do something. Yeah. And then, so there's actually practical things that have come out of it. We've had pretty good listen load, and then actually a lot of support for Class, in particular, the founder CEO, who has been through a pretty traumatic experience. Yeah. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, the Montu story,
because actually again, where credit's due, that was a kind of the SaaS Christmas party here in Wellington. There were a lot of people talking about the work that goes into something like that to bring everyone together, and I didn't realise until I don't think I attended last year or the year before, but There were a lot of incredible people sort of getting together, having conversations, but more importantly, sort of sharing their stories and going, actually, this is something we should have on the podcast. And I was like, sure, go and speak to Troy. He's outside. That was pretty much what I was doing the whole night. Don't annoy Serge. He's too busy. But yeah, there's a lot of I think we're gonna have a lot of interesting stories in 2026, which I'm really excited about.
Totally agree. All right, well, let's get on with bringing John.
Today's guest is brought to you by Vanta. Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Vanta automates compliance for global frameworks like ISO 27001 and SOC 2, saving you time and money, helping you build customer trust. Over 8,000 global companies like Atlassian, Dovetail, Sharesies and Flossy all use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. I actually had dinner with the whole Vanta team and I knew instantly that they would be the sponsor on the podcast. They just genuinely care about startups, and to make it go even one better, they've actually decided that my audience gets a special offer of $1,000 USD off from Vanta. All you have to do is go to vanta.com/startup theatre and enjoy your $1,000 USD off now.
Welcome to the studio, John. We're delighted to have you here.
Great to be here.
Now, if I was a betting man, I know you're into your mountain biking, all of that stuff. I wouldn't have thought you're very good at sewing, but apparently you are. Tell us why.
Yeah. Well, it all started when I was just a young kid at university. Well, actually before university, at high school. And I was looking for a job. I needed a job and I thought, hey, I'll give this retail a go. And Decca was advertising. That was Decca. Decca, the old Decca, classic Decca.
We're aging ourselves, yeah?
Yes, it's farmers for those people who don't know, or some of the farmers. And so I did an interview for a job at Decca. And me and my mate did. And we got to the end of the job and in the interview process, and they offered the job and they said, oh, great. And I said, well, how much are they going to pay me? They said $4.95. And I went just like, wow, that's not going to work, is it? I've got some exciting things that I want to invest in, windsurfing. I love that. And that's not going to pay for my gear. So I basically went into a ski shop, and because I was quite involved in skiing at the time and so forth. And I just said to the guy, I said, look, I want to build something, what can I build? What in here can I build? And he said, he took me out the back and he said, well, have a look at these ski racks. And they were the webbing ski racks. The ski racks hold skis on the roof, obviously. And they had webbing and they had the foam cups. I don't know if you remember those back in the old day, because the original cars didn't have the gutter, or had the gutters, and so you could strap them on either side, right? And so I looked at them and I thought, yeah, I reckon I could build that. And my mum had this old Singer sewing machine. I'd love to show a photo of it because it's such it's such a, we'll see it in the description or whatever if we can. But I cracked in and I had to go up building these things. I must have broken a needle every 2 minutes on this stuff. But I built a set and I took it to the guy at the shop and I said, here we go, give it a go. And it worked really well. And I thought, here we go, let's get into this. And so that was the start of Expressions Windsurf, Ski and Surf, which was basically a manufacturing apparel in the basement of my dad's house. My dad was super supportive, and that was so much fun because I got to use my creative outlets, and I'm quite tactile, and I designed everything from sort of harnesses to tie downs to even TNC watch straps.
Right.
So it was a super sort of start to my life, and I ended up putting myself through university and then
by doing that. So how old were you when they had that conversation?
I think I was about 17.
No way, okay.
Yeah.
And what about your mate? Was he involved as well?
No, he stayed with Decca, actually. Yeah. So I always laugh whenever I went to the Decca shop. If you're hiding down the aisles, yeah. That was a really cool time too, because at the time windsurfing was really taking off in the 90s, and there was a whole lot of new technology that was coming back. And my dad would go overseas and he would go windsurfing and bring all the good stuff back, the new sails and new harnesses and so forth. And my mates saw all the surfboards and thought, that's cool. It's cool to make a surfboard. It's cool to make a windsurfer. And so I kind of took on another journey. I sort of thought, well, everyone's going to be doing that. And that's partially why I got into the sewing side of things, because ain't nobody going to pick up a sewing machine out of my mates and do that. So, that was kind of a little bit of the focus for me at the start there.
So beyond the sewing skills, which no doubt come in very handy in a software business, what are the principal entrepreneurial lessons from that first attempt?
I mean, you just have confidence in yourself, right? Back yourself, I think, is a big one. that you can do things, and also back yourself that you can always make things more efficient. I'm just a huge advocate for efficiencies. It's funny, you start by cutting one piece of webbing for a ski rack, and then you go, how can I do this where I'm cutting 20 or 50?
Yeah.
When you're making a harness and you're sort of cutting all the material, how can we do that more efficiently? And so you look out in the market, and there's actually cutters that allow you to sort of fold a whole lot of material on top of each other and cut 100 harnesses at once. So I think the first thing is really looking for efficiencies in all that you do. I guess we get into that a little bit later when it comes to SaaS, but I think just looking for efficiencies is pretty cool.
So how long did you do that for?
Well, it was 5 years. I spent a bit of time at university. My dad was ready for me to leave home by the time I was finished.
Out of the basement, mate.
Out of the basement, get out of the basement. About 5 years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you had a corporate career like Adrian and I have had. You were in the telco space, and that kind of led you indirectly, I guess, to the business that you founded, Arlo. So tell me, I guess, what was the corporate job that you were doing, and how did that transition into founding Arlo? Tell us a little bit about what Arlo does.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the corporate was telecom at the time. It was really interesting for me because I had so much fun at university and doing the startup.
Yeah.
And I basically jumped into the corporate market straight in, from entrepreneurial to corporate. And the many times I was thinking, like, what am I doing here? I should be starting or working with another entrepreneur but I think actually it gave me a lot of grounding in just some core principles of running a business and at scale, and even things like writing professional proposals. Seeing how good business proposals are built at a corporate level, I later on used that same lessons learned. And also, just general sort of integration with other people or interactions with other people and collaboration. And there were some cool projects I got involved in. It was the time with mobile marketing, and I was looking after some big TVC campaigns, television campaigns. Those phones, the Nokia phones with the faceplates of the Super Rugby team?
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my campaigns, and it was like, that was super fun. So having finished that, I actually went over to the UK and did my IOV for 3 years, and I was looking after product for a big ISP. That was interesting. It was like the .com boom when I went there, and there was just money everywhere.
Okay.
You want to fly there? No problem. I'll put that new phone on your expenses. No. And by the end of it, it was just a completely different story. But I came back from the UK, and because I'd sort of left quite a good reputation at Telecom, I was offered a job when I came back, and they said, we've got the service line management role. It's for security. And I thought, that sounds great. Just left the UK, and security was a big thing back then. And so I started the job, and they said, actually, by the way, you're looking after School Zone. I said, what? Yeah, it's a product for schools. It's an all-in-one solution. It's got internet access, email, safe browsing, firewall, and no one really wanted to touch it. Which like at the time I was like, what am I doing here? But it turned out to be super exciting, because there was lots of elements to it. I mean, you could argue that it was probably the first full-scale SaaS solution in New Zealand in education. But one of the really cool aspects of it was we got to run video conferencing over the circuit. So
for schools.
And when was this, like timing wise? We're talking what?
2004.
Okay.
2004, yeah, something around there. It was a really great solution, and it really solved a lot of the schools' problems because they didn't have to have IT teams. They could outsource it all, and it was all online, the emails and stuff like that. So that was really good. But what the kicker was they were able to run video conferencing over the top of it. And back then, circuits were just so small, 512. I think we even sold like 256K circuits. Yeah. Like, it's just ridiculous that you could do anything on them. And, I think 5K, the biggest one was 2 megs. Like, if you're a really big school, you had 2 megs.
5 meg if you're,
yeah. What we built this technology that allowed you to run video conferencing over the top of a standard, actually a 512 circuit, would you believe, by prioritizing the traffic. Now, that allowed schools in rural areas to set up cohorts and share teaching resource.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they were able to, have a science teacher and deliver, school C science to all the students in a cohort of schools. Oh. A Māori teacher that was able to do languages, same deal. So it was really effective. There was the screens were like bulb screens back then, no flat screens, just to give you a bit of an idea of how outdated the technology was. But it worked really well. And then because Telecom was into education at the time, they jumped on it, and we got Helen Clark, who was the New Zealand Prime Minister at the time, doing calls into the schools. We got Phil Goff, from Antarctica doing a call into the schools.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was, and actually went on to win 2 Ann's Broadband Innovation Award, so it was really successful. But the challenge with that was to roll out the training. So at the heart of the product was the email and intranet, and we had to train all the teachers on how to use that. And there was 5,000 plus teachers in New Zealand, right? And the material that was created was for face-to-face training. And that's fine, Wellington, Auckland, Christchurch. But we had all these rural schools that we're going to try and train. And so I'd noticed, this web conferencing technology that was out there. And so I thought, hey, why don't we just take these face-to-face courses of this material and convert them to live online web conferencing? And of course, at the time, it was quite innovative. The cameras were, terrible pixely sort of screens. And you couldn't even run audio over the internet connections. But because Telecom ran audio bridges. I don't know if you guys remember those days where you call into a bridge.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like $2 or something crazy per minute, but it was all free because it was telecom, So we combined the internet, the video with the audio. Anyway, so we converted the face-to-face courses to live online courses, and it was a huge success. We had, I think, 90% of the teachers who attended rated as excellent or very good, right? And we thought, man, we're onto something here, right? A phrase that often comes up. I think I'm onto something. I always say that to my partner Kathy in the midst of hard times. Anyway, I saw that this technology could really work. We could actually use this to deliver training, and I thought, heck, why don't we actually build a whole learning platform and allow training businesses who do face-to-face to convert those courses to online and basically create what we coined at the time a trade me of learning? Because if you recall, Trade Me at the time of, around that 2007 and so forth, was one of the auction sites. Same sort of concept, go there to get your learning and lessons.
Like a marketplace.
A marketplace, right?
Yeah. This goes back to your efficiency.
Yeah.
The DNA, isn't it? Really? How do I make this more efficient? Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. How do you make trading more efficient? Yeah, that's right. We built Tim Harper built this booking system to manage all the logistics of, people, because all these thousands of people trying to register on a course. And that worked out well. I thought, okay, at that time, actually, School Zone had been really successful. We actually closed a deal to sell it to every school in New Zealand. So we'd sort of won a big award. We'd sold it to every school in New Zealand, had this major hype. And then after that, it started just to become a standard service. Sure. And so I got kind of a little bit bored. And I was looking for something new to get into. And, my roots was in being an entrepreneur, having started the business at 17. And I really was keen to get into something new. So that's where I thought, right, okay, we've got this technology, let's build a bigger scale platform, like a learning platform, as you say, and let's take it to the market. And so I contacted some of the training organisations and said, I've got this great technology, let's give it a crack, let's take some of your courses. It wasn't long before I realised that they just had a massive amount of inefficiencies just running their business, right?
Yep.
So these are training,
as a training
face-to-face training organisations,
face-to-face training, right?
Give me an example of that. Like, what was one of the things that you're standard that we're seeing, like with these guys?
Well, the two markets I went for initially, one was government-funded training, right? So entrepreneurs or business startups would go and register for a course. I mean, they still do it now, right? And so those training providers who are doing sort of, startup courses, right through, well, the other ones were community education, ComEd. That was like cooking classes but language schools and stuff that was fun to do at the schools. So those are two examples. So, so coming back to the point, I asked them and said, what do you think of this platform? They said, no, there's too many problems. So, because what happens when you're a training provider, which incidentally is exactly the market that Arlo, the company I set up, targets, they have a website for promoting their courses, the calendar, the catalogue, the course page. You've got a registration process. And then you've got the back end, which is the logistics of, scheduling the courses, managing the availability and so forth like that. And then you've got the CRM, and even the registration process that they were using was based on selling products as opposed to selling courses.
Got it.
So at that point I went, right, there's the opportunity. Build a solution for training providers who want to run their business and don't want all these different systems and don't want to be copying information from one to another. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what Arlo became. It became more than that because actually at the back end of it, it had a CRM and it integrated with your financial system. And so you had client management, you had leads coming in, you had campaigns. So it really was a full solution for a training provider who is commercially selling courses into another business.
So if Adrian and I wanted to set up a training organisation to train people how to run mediocre podcasts, Arlo would provide everything we need to book our training courses, pay for them, run them, integrate into financials, report on them, do customer reporting. Is that
100%? Yep,
perfect?
That's it. Yeah,
Good idea.
So that was the start. That was the start of the journey.
When you said the phrase, I think we're onto something. How did you know you were onto sufficient somethings to quit your successful corporate job?
I really immersed myself in the problem. And so I sat down with the training businesses. And so the ones I was talking about, the government funded one, and then there's the ComEd. By the time I started to really get into it, I got into universities who do short courses. So, Auckland University, PwC, Thomson Reuters. There's a lot of training that's done for professionals, teacher, PD, lawyers, accountants, trades, you name it. So anyone who needs to do training as part of their job. With these bigger organisations, I just sat next to the admin and just followed what they're doing and saw just how much manual processes, the reports they did. And so I knew straight away that if I could make life easier, there was a big demand for it, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious. And of course, University of Auckland, financially, it was costing them a lot of money, all this duplication of data.
But how did you know? What was the thing that told you, this is definitely a thing? I am onto something.
Well, I guess you just got to back yourself, really. If you see a problem and that people are engaging with you and they're actually wanting to share their problem with you and they're inviting you in to sit down and right next to them to find out, how they operate their business, that you've got something there,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that the problem, a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast and people we've spoken to, you have to kind of get in there and back yourself and have a real sense of I am going to get in there and solve that. Did you have other people that you could bounce this idea past and they were like, you're definitely onto something? Or did you just have to be what sort of support did you have around you to go into these places as well? Was it just kind of you and your idea and hoping for the best?
It really helps to have someone who backs you, right?
Yeah.
I was fortunate with my dad, actually, who really believed in me. He was a bit of an entrepreneur himself.
In the Arlo context or in the context of windsurfing kit?
Or just all of it?
Just everything, really. Yeah. But specifically...
Shout out to John's dad.
Shout out to my dad, shout out Dad. And my mum too, by the way, too. She was super supportive of a lot of my creative sort of outlet too. She was right into that and really supportive. So, having someone who backs you. But, I think in my situation, it was kind of pretty obvious that there was a problem. It wasn't like, I wonder if this will work. It's like,
you kind of tested it, hadn't you? You already kind of knew that it would work, right? Yeah. But you're looking at a different vertical now.
Yeah, that's right.
And were you a solo founder all along? Or did you have someone along and who then got a job at Decca or elsewhere?
Yeah, I was to start with. I employed two people, Alistair Quidane, who became very involved. He was essentially a co-founder in the end. I was contracted in initially. He's been an awesome, amazing part of the success to build the technology, actually. And so he was quite key at the start there to do the technology side of things.
How do you know when you're ready to bring someone on? Everyone has a bit of a different story here, but who were you looking for? What were you looking for? How did you know it was right? And were there any moments where you were like, well, maybe it wasn't right? You know what I mean? There's a lot of people as well that, there's a great story about, it was three of us and we decided it was an idea. Well, it's just you.
Yep.
Were you like, something's missing here? Like that self-awareness of I don't know how to sell it, or I don't know how to build it, or I would love somebody else to join me on this journey so it's not so lonely?
I did actually have Richard McGleeson, actually. Shout out to him because he was actually with me from the very first inception.
Right, good.
And then I got Alistair. So I had another person there. In fact, the debate that we were having at the time was whether SaaS was a thing, whether desktop software was going to continue. He really gave me a lot of support and encouragement that, I think the SaaS thing actually has some potential. So this is 2007, right? The other thing I think that helped cement it is watching Xero, right? Because Xero at the same time was building their product, and that was obviously all SaaS. And so I had the support from people around me. I had other people who were software developers who knew the technology well and were able to sort of give me confidence that what we're doing was right from a technical perspective. Although say that we started with SharePoint. I don't know if we actually built on SharePoint to start with, but anyway, that's another story.
So, fast forward to now, so that was a while back. When did you go alone, or when did you start? When did you have a commercially available product?
It was pretty soon after, because 2008, I think, was the first customer. The business centre was our first live customer.
So fast forward quite a few years from there. So you guys have done billions of dollars of payments. You've had millions of trainees through the platform. Give us a sense of the shape of the business now.
It's now in 70 countries. We've got office in Wellington, the UK, Canada, Vancouver. Yeah, it's doing like you say, process about 500 million in transactions per annum. We've got fully built out sales, marketing teams, as you can imagine, 70 staff sort of organisation. You can imagine the sort of structure there. And
along the way, you've had a couple of near-death experiences, I understand. One of those, kind of, I guess, quite a common story amongst our audience. So COVID, you're obviously selling to face-to-face training organisations. Face-to-face training dropped off the cliff. So successful business now, but you might have died a couple of times along the way.
We might have.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you could just imagine, right? Well, so face-to-face training, that was the core of our value prop, right? Companies selling face-to-face training to other organisations. So literally COVID hit, and overnight, all our customers around the globe couldn't do training, right? Their whole revenue streams dried up. And with it, we potentially were going to dry up as well. And so it was awesome. The team was amazing because we did our biggest pivot ever. And basically we pivoted from face-to-face to live online. So interesting enough, we sort of parked the live online and went fully face-to-face around the journey. But so at this point...
So you had been exclusively face-to-face?
Yeah, I mean, we'd supported GoToWebinar and done some, but the main thing was around sort of face-to-face. So anyway, so literally overnight, our whole customer base couldn't operate. So we pivoted. It really showed how if you get your whole team focused on something, you can do amazing things, right? So our tech team dropped everything and did Zoom integration. Right. Because Zoom was, you can recall?
Yeah.
Zoom was just, everyone was using Zoom. And so we did a really good integration with Zoom. Our support team thought, right, okay, we're going to need to run webinars on how you convert your face-to-face to live online.
Yeah, because your customers having to transition themselves.
Another one.
So we did a whole lot of webinar series and it was super popular. We actually sort of became the thought leader in that sort of space. And then we worked with the finance side of things with our customers, gave them free licenses and really supported their transition there. And our marketing guys did some really cool illustrations, really funny, quirky sort of illustrations. That whole package just meant that we were all of a sudden the solution that you needed if you were a training business that was doing face-to-face and needed to get with the program and move forward. So, yeah.
But I guess those people were thinking, to your point, we're going to fall off a cliff, we won't figure it out. And you were like, we've figured it out.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, good story, right?
Yeah. Like I just...
So don't panic. We've got this.
Yeah, like, so challenges turn into opportunities, the old cliche. But it was certainly very much the case here,
Yeah, but I wouldn't downplay that. That comes down to your point, a really smart team who can pivot. And we hear stories like that, don't we? We've heard about that with Cami when they pivoted during COVID and they just kind of figured it out and made a few twists and change. And it is a good story, but also a remarkable team, I guess.
Yeah.
And I hear you attract fires as well.
Yeah, fires. Yes, we do. So fires turning, a bad situation into a great opportunity, I guess is a reference there with a fire. So we came in to the office one morning only to find danger, do not enter, strapped all over our door, right?
Not what you want.
Yeah. And looked up and the next door office next door to us was all soot black. There was obviously a fire had started next door. It was like, oh no, what's happened? Fortunately, our office, which was right next to them, literally right on the other side, didn't get affected. But they had a big fire. I'll tell you the story about how it actually started. So you have those big diffuser lights, just a traditional light.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And fluorescent lights, right?
Yeah.
And they have starters. And the starter had failed. And it caught a light and it dropped onto the diffuser that sits underneath and that caught that plastic light. What? And then that dripped onto a photocopier, right? And then the photocopier set alight and next thing you know, that whole building, unfortunately, that office part burnt. But here's the good part of it. So we were really struggling in the office that we're in terms of space. We'd grown quite a bit and we needed new space. And when I walked through this, all the soot and all the burnt out office, you could see the sort of suspended ceiling and look through the ceiling. You saw this massive high pitched roof with beautiful beams.
Right. And
then the carpet was burnt and you could see the concrete under it. I thought, here we go. We rip out the sort of roof, the artificial roof, beautiful big, sand them all up. We polish the concrete floors. We rip out the whole sort of the.
When you say we, I assume you didn't get out the sandpaper.
No.
So the creative sewing machine. Yeah.
No, but I did actually do all the designs for the layout, because I went to the landlord and said, look, I think this is going to be awesome. I did a layout of the office with the new kitchen and everything. And anyway, so it was at the time we did the Arlo branding as well. So we had yellow, and so it was really cool to put the yellow and the trimming all around the office. So that was my first fire story, which resulted in a really cool office experience for the team. Do you want to hear the next?
Yeah, why not? We're on fire themes.
Yeah, so the next office. So we grew out of that building, and so I love the ocean and the sea. I'm quite actively into my kite surfing and all that sort of stuff in the water. And so I always wanted a office that overlooked the waterfront, and in Petone, it literally is the foreshore of the Wellington harbour. I was looking at buildings up and down the foreshore there, Petone Esplanade, and I found this building, and it was sitting there for a long time. It was actually John's Fish Market, believe it or not.
I took a girl on a date there a long time ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
That would have been a while ago.
Yeah, temping bowling and fish and chips on the beach.
Oh, Sergio Romeo, all right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so John's Fish Market, I thought, man, there's a cool building there. And they had a fire that gutted the restaurant, the place that you went. And it gutted the middle floor, and so the whole building was sort of condemned there for 2 or 3 years. So I went to that landlord and said, hey, I reckon we can make something of this place. I reckon we can turn it into an office building. Do you want me to show you some plans? And he said yes. And so I mocked up a whole lot of plans, and he really liked it. And next thing you know, we're ripping into a new development there in that building, and it was meant to only take like 6 to 8 months. But once they started ripping it away, they realised how damaged it was in the earthquake, and then COVID hit, and so it went from like a 6 to 8 months to 2 to 3 years sort of project. Right. But at the end of it, we had a brand new building, and it's just awesome.
Amazing location.
Yeah, amazing.
Won awards and stuff, is it?
Yeah. Well, we'd like to think it should win an award. It never did, no. But yeah, because we did this really cool internal to it. So just to set the scene, we've got like I said, we've got 70 countries we're operating, and we've got these offices around the world at that time. And so one of our values in the company was one family around the world. Because as New Zealanders, we've got a lot of diversity in companies here in New Zealand. There's people that have come from lots of different places.
Yeah, a massive migrant population, especially in tech.
Yeah. So that was sort of the background of it. And then ourselves, we were, all over the world. So I had this idea of like, why don't we make the office, theme it up, where each room represents a city that we operate in. So you have like the London room and the Vancouver room and so the Wellington room. And then, if you go to the top of New Zealand, the Bluff, you see all those signs. Like Sydney this way, London this way. So using that same kind of theme, we had the same signs pointing at the different rooms in the office. Yeah. And then in each of the rooms, I worked really closely with a guy, Chris Davidson. He's an awesome artist. And we basically bounced ideas, and we basically had mosaics on each of the windows. And we had key, buildings key buildings for each of the locations. So Beehive for Wellington and Big Ben for London room and so forth. And then the real cool part of the whole building, which brings it all together, is this map of the world, a big map of the world, and using the same sort of graphics and illustrations with Big Ben. And like in Australia, we had a kangaroo, so we had this big map of the world. We had all these sort of characters and buildings on it, and then we put people's names, and we put arrow to where they were born. And so you've got this massive map of the world, you've got all these cool illustrations, and then you've got everyone's name, and they're all spread out because of the diversity. And you've even got locations like where our offices are and our data centre. So yeah, it's worked out really cool. I
love that. It does show how small the world is really in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously pretty successful business with Arlo, but it can't have all been plain sailing.
Yeah.
Broken up by the occasional fire somewhere. So out of the journey that you've had, where did you screw up? What did you do? Where did you feel like, oh my God, we've taken the wrong turn here?
Probably the biggest one was when we just secured $1 million in funding.
Is it your first sort of serious money?
Yeah, the first sort of non-family friend sort of funding, $1 million. And, leading up to that, I mean, we're roughing it, right? As a family, we just had a baby, had a daughter as well, and we're in a small 3-bedroom place, and the baby is in the same room as our room. We had a server in our spare room. Funny story, actually, when people came
Keep the
over,
baby to sleep.
we had to turn the server off because it was too noisy.
Oh my God.
So I was like, anyway, so we're in tough times, right? And it was really fighting it out. And I think it was December 2013, and we landed $1 million, and we thought, we're made here. This is bring it on. Let's all go. And so we thought, right, well, we better start paying ourselves some decent money. Not crazy money, but at least some money, and let's start employing some people. And in the next 3 months, we sold one deal. And so we had got convinced these guys, the shareholders that, hey, we've got this great opportunity. We're going to take on the world.
Here's
look at our
pipeline.
numbers, and we closed one deal in 3 months. And oh man, the pressure that put on all of us was just intense.
What did you do wrong?
Yeah, what we did wrong is we didn't recruit the right people.
Right.
There's 2 things, right? One of us not recruiting the right people. So there was a couple of salespeople that we brought in that they just weren't right fit.
What does that look like? Is that a cultural fit, or is that they didn't have the capability? They didn't have it. What was that?
I think it was a technical fit, right? The sales skills that you need to have for Arlo is quite technical. You're a bit of a consultant. So you actually needed to understand the software well, and you needed to understand how people have different systems and processes, and so that was one thing. And then, to be honest, they just weren't necessarily sharp salespeople. I recruited these people. One, I didn't recruit the right people, and 2, I didn't make the change quick enough, and so I was a bit too nice. Well, I was too nice, right? And I wasn't aware that actually sometimes you just need to make some of those hard decisions. In fact, what the real turning point was to get over that was actually I brought in Kathy Middleplatz, which is my partner. She was a seasoned salesperson, and she's really straight as a die, and she sort of calls a spade, but she's very skilled in coaching. So one thing, first of all, she gave me the encouragement to say, hey, look, you need to make changes. Make the changes. It's for the better of the whole team.
Presumably you knew you needed to, but
I knew you needed to push it. Yeah, that's right. And then the other thing was she was a really good coach. She looked at all the emails, whether it were tickets or sales, and she really helped refine all that communication and just lift everyone to another level.
Right.
So the 2 lessons there is, the lesson that came from it is make sure you recruit the right people, but then we invested a lot of time in actually building up really good recruitment processes, practical testing, just that whole process of getting really good people. We honed in and really made that a really good process. I mean, you don't always get it right. Even if you do everything you think you got right, you still end up recruiting people who aren't the right fit. But you just got to make sure that you're ready to, make their decision if they're not the right fit to move them along. It's
a really, really good piece of advice, though, because we've got people that are thinking, what's my next hire look like? I agree. I've made some terrible recruitment decisions over time, but you have to learn really quickly to fire fast.
Yeah.
Which sounds brutal.
Yes.
It is brutal, but it's important.
It is. And it's because you're actually looking after the lives and the families of everyone else in the company. You're actually dealing with, 20, 50, 70 people's families, right? Yep. So you've really got to make some of those right decisions.
And hey, sometimes they also know that they're not the right fit. I mean, one of the best conversations you can have, I had a conversation with a guy and said, I just don't even know if you're massively happy here. And he went, it's not the right fit for me. And I'm like, let's just leave it there kind of thing. So,
thinking and talking earlier about some of the keys to your success, you probably want to explore a couple of themes. One that you use quite often is how perception is everything, fake it till you make it, that kind of vibe. That's definitely, it's come through today, but it's definitely part of the Arlo story. Perhaps talk a little bit about that and what advice you might have for early stage founders when you think about that perception is everything, or fake it till you make it, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, critical, right? And I think that was definitely part of our success in terms of the early days. So when we built our website, we wanted to make look like that we're this large global operation. And so we had things like pricing in all these different currencies, US. I don't think we had any customers, but we had US dollars there. Sure. Yeah. And we had, euros and pounds. So it was really making that website look like we're a large operation and that we weren't from New Zealand, that we're actually based in London and around Europe and US.
Massive multinational.
Massive multinational. Literally, 10 people in a building in Wellington, New Zealand. So we did things like the currency, the pricing. We did other things like local 0800 numbers. We had offices there. So the other thing I think which was really important at the time is we copied, right, or inspiration through imitation, so we had Xero there as a really good example of a great website, a big global website. So we used a lot of the inspiration from what they were doing. I mean, let's face it, we had one marketer, and they had like 100. We had 50,000 of that, 10,000 maybe, and they had millions of dollars in their marketing. So I think, making it look like you're bigger than you are, you've heard it all before, that's really key. But I think getting inspiration from other businesses, I think that was really key, like just following Xero, following Campaign Monitor, following Zendesk. Maybe you'll recognise some of these, you guys will, not everyone will, but I think you go out to the market and you find companies that have money and that are doing great things, and you imitate them, right, where it's possible.
Yeah, I think that shameless imitation thing, I mean, it's come through in conversations with you before, but there's nothing wrong with copying what others are doing, right? What's
a really cool time is when you get past that and you start creating your own entity. And that was like some of the creative stuff we did with Arlo in the end was really cool. But yeah, certainly initially just that was everything from their marketing to their emails to what tools they're using. Okay, so from software development perspective, from UI perspectives, I think you just have got to spend a lot of your time in your team saying, okay, look at people who are doing great things out there and emulate that, or at least get ideas from that. Because that's the fastest way that you'll get there to, doing it yourself.
And adjacent to this perception question, there's obviously the idea of, being easy to find or find or being found.
Yep.
I know, again, that's kind of a really important driver for you. You knew that you had a product, but actually people had to discover you, which is not surprising. Distribution is pretty important. Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things you did to be found, right? Because you're saying your customers in 70 countries, all that stuff. Somehow they've stumbled upon Arlo. What have you done? And particularly, what did you do in the early days to be found?
We coined the phrase, be found when people go looking. That was the big thing, right? Because, we couldn't afford to do outbound calling. Anyone who knows anything about sales is you want warm leads, right? You want someone who's, got a problem, recognise they need to solve the problem, has budget and a time constraint. And so in other words, you want someone who's searching on the web for a solution, and you want to be found when they actually go searching. So that was a real mantra that we took on. And so one of the things that I stumbled on, again, this is early on, was remarketing, Google remarketing. So back when we first started, Google AdWords and this technology was relatively new. And so what I worked out was that for $5 a day, you could hound someone so that as soon as they went to your site, any other site, they'd see your ads everywhere. Well, no one else knew that, right? All they knew is that when they started looking, and the next thing when they're going on to BBC or any of these big, the Herald or other websites, here's Arlo everywhere. But these guys must be spending millions.
They're amazing.
We actually got people going, how much do you guys spend on marketing?
No way.
You must be spending so much. And it was like $5 a week, $5 a day.
We can harass you for $5.
Yeah. But the other thing was, again, they're kind of 101 stuff now, right? SEO, so making sure your site's got all the names of it. The AdWords, I get quite analytical. So when I sort of get into something, I really get into it in detail. I created a whole lot of different campaigns and tested a whole lot of different campaigns and landing pages and really got into the science of AdWords. And again, because people weren't doing it at the time, there was a real opportunity to beat other people. Right. Whereas now it's kind of well known, it's just a lot harder to do. So that was the AdWords, really getting into that. We also, because we're hosting all these big websites, as we got bigger and bigger, we got more recognisable websites, and we could do backlinks. So we're hosting their checkout, and we're hosting their pages, their course pages and their calendar pages. It's a little powered by Arlo, as lead source at the time, and then a backlink to our site gave us a whole lot of juice, SEO juice, right? And so that lifted our rankings and our domain authority up to the top. So it's all about, making sure that you're top of the list when someone does a search. And other things like, software review sites. I don't think they're quite as much now, but back...
No, well, reviews have actually now made a comeback because AI engines are looking for third-party references. So actually reviews have become really, really critical again. They were for a while, stopped being cool because there's so many ways to hack Google. And now review sites are really, really important part of strategy now
interesting.
for being found.
It was a pretty simple formula. If we'd do surveys, NPS surveys, person gave us a good review, we'd draft up, this is probably quite important, you would draft up or their review, or you'd change the wording and say, hey, do you mind if I post this, or can you post this? You make it easy for someone to be able to post a review, right? So obviously people who have graded you highly, you contact them and say, can you do a review? Yeah. But I think it's important to actually make it even easier, right? Can you do a review? How does this sound? So I wouldn't suggest.
No, it's true. If you want to get the feedback out there and you want to get the sort of soundbite, sometimes it's like when you do a press release, you might sort of say, look, this is what we're going to say.
Yeah.
And you get it in front of them, right? Make it easy. You're quite right.
Yeah, and it all feels like belts and braces stuff, but it's actually, first it was innovative then, but it remains so critical now if you want to grow and be found, which is, I guess, the principle.
The other one was leveraging other big brands when it came to app stores. So, we integrated with Campaign Monitor, Xero, Salesforce, WordPress. And so by doing that, you got onto their app listings, which you do now, right? And you get that link back to your site to make sure that they've actually allowed that to happen. So you get that juice. And of course, you also run campaigns which say, Xero plus Arlo equals great training platform, something like that. And so people will see the Xero brand or the WordPress brand, and that's another way to sort of get some sort of lifting your brand a bit higher too.
Yeah, and again, it's still part of the perception thing, right? So that's excellent strategy, really. It's obviously worked for you. So, you've grown, been a successful business. We've talked about scale of the business now. You've transitioned out of the CEO role. Do you want to tell us about, I guess, how that came about and how you feel about it, and how you felt about it then, how you feel about it now?
Yeah, that was a few years ago now that I stepped back. So obviously I was running at the CE and I decided to step back. And it was a big decision and it was a big move actually. But really after I'd been in that business for like 16 years at that time, that's a long time. Yeah. A lot of my energy was starting to wane a little bit to, the same topic, the same sort of product, the same thing. And so I was really keen to, get out there and actually try something new. And also the other thing is I think which is quite important, when you're in the business, you head down and you're just always working and it's full on and you really don't get a chance to look back. Because once you've achieved something, you're kind of like, I've got that award. What's next?
Yeah.
And okay, we've got the UK office now. What about the US office? We've hit these targets, but what about the targets for next year? The shareholders are keen to see, that continual growth. So I thought, let's step back and a time for reflection and just, enjoy some of the successes, right? Or reflect on some of those successes and do a lot of kite surfing. So that was cool just to sit back and kite surfing, mountain biking and just take a bit of a break.
And it's not, it sounds like it could be unusual, but a lot of people can take a view on their business after a while and take that step back. How did you sort of position that and talk about it internally with your team? Because actually it can be, oh my goodness, what's going on? Why, so what's...
it can be traumatic for organizations.
It can be. And I think that you've got to, I had to do something very similar and I remember having to be very careful about, hey, listen, this is because this is about me, not you kind of thing. Yeah. It's not a breakup story. I'm very proud of something. So how did you approach that?
Yeah, well, I think what was really important in that transition from one person in a company to 70 is to build a really strong team around you.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And to build really good leaders in each of those areas, marketing, sales, success, finance. And also build up a business that's got lots of good processes, documentation. Basically, it stands on its own, and it can. And the team has got the skills and expertise to run it themselves, right? And so while early on when there's, only 10 of you, you really have to be a jack of all trades, right? And you have to be in the thick of everything and the people are looking up to you about, how do we do this and, what should we do in this decision? But once you get to sort of 70 people, the team is really actually don't want you to do that as much, right? Yeah. That was one of the things I learned is that actually get your hands off a step back and let empower other people to make some of those decisions because they want to and it's really satisfying to them. And so by the time I sort of stepped back, I knew that we had a really good exec team there and fully capable and probably in some respects they enjoyed, a little bit more autonomy, me stepping out. I mean, I'm sure I would hope they still miss me, but no, in all seriousness, though, they really had the capabilities just to keep it going.
But then that would play to the theme that we're hearing from you too around the natural aptitude around creativity, because you do get to that 70. And actually, Serge and I have had this conversation over the years where it's like, where do you play at your best?
Yes.
And sometimes it's like the 0 to 10s or the 0 to 50s or what it might be. But when it gets, I mean, I think I was in an organisation that got to over 100, and I was like, am I giving them the best, and am I feeling at my best? And I think that's often the case. And when you're looking at growing a business, really recognising where your strengths come to play, and I love that you built a team around you that allowed you to kind of go, we're ready for me to step back and bring in some fresh blood, because a lot of people don't have that self-awareness and guts to do that without it feeling like a failure, and it's not.
Yeah, I think your point there too about where do you play at your best, right, is so true, because I am quite a hands-on person and, creative person, like to get involved. Yeah. And when you get to that 70, it's a different type of
you're like, guys, what are you doing?
No, stay out of this.
They're like, we don't want you here, John.
No, we've got this covered. And so I think that's true, and it's such a different dynamic. You must have found that too. And also it's a different dynamics and different people. When you start with a group of your first 5 or 10, they're a lot like-minded, or to a large extent. They're driven. They love trying different things, being thrown at different challenges. Hey, I want you to do marketing on this. And then, hey, can you do a sales presentation or call? And they're kind of really positive, enthusiastic, go-getter sort of people, which, most of the time that's what we are as entrepreneurs. And but when you get bigger, you start to employ other people that the company that they work for isn't their life, right? In some cases, it's just a means to generate revenue. They enjoy it, but they get a lot of satisfaction about the people they work with rather than the journey that they're going on. And I think sometimes when it can be hard to sort of adjust your relationships and work with those, a broader group of people with different sort of mindsets. And so, I mean, I did have to make that transition as I matured, but also in some cases, maybe the smaller businesses are just a better fit. And
we've found as well, like just talking to people, and we did a panel recently down in Queenstown when we interviewed Rod, and there was, people sort of sitting on that panel saying, actually, I'm not really the startup guy, I'm actually the scale-up guy. Right. And I like coming into a business when it's at 70 to 100 and scaling it, and I'm looking at this person saying, I can see how people love that. Sometimes that's not me. And actually, when you like to get your hands dirty and when you like to be involved with it, and everyone's name, probably their wives / husbands, kids, whatever, when it starts to get big, it starts to feel less where you want to be. And it's not a bad way to do that. And I think when we've got a lot of people that are listening and they're building businesses with 3 or 4 people around them at the moment, having that confidence to take it to a point and then saying, what is the next thing that's right for my company that is, I love. It's like letting go of a kid and letting them go to university. Yeah. Actually I've raised them well, they're good to go. Windsurfing for everyone, right? Yeah.
Did you feel like a failure though at all, like in that stepping back process? Or what was kind of the dominant emotion? Like you come to some conclusion, but there's still some feelings, I guess. To
be honest, I actually felt pretty good in most cases because, it's quite, because like I said, you can actually reflect and it's a time for reflection. Yeah, so it was actually... It was quite good. I mean, there's times where you go, the timing wasn't great because I built the new office, right? And that was such a passionate project for me. It was such a cool environment. And I kind of like stepping back from there and thinking, man, I've built this really cool view of the, from my office and like, it's only just a walk from my home to the office. There's swimming in front and, so there was a little bit of that, a little bit sad, that I didn't quite manage to leverage all that, or take advantage of the thing that we'd built there. There was a bit of that.
But your creative DNA is in the bones of that company. Yeah. Just by the fact you've done that. Like, I think that's the part where people also live on and on within organisations, even when they're not present. Just by the fact, the way you've defined efficiency within the organisation, the way that you've been the creative person and allowed people to grow, I think that we should never underestimate that.
So you're doing a bit of windsurfing, a bit of mountain biking, the new John. I understand, no podcast in 2026 can go through without talking about AI. You've kind of started your own AI journey as well. Yeah. You're not a technical person, you're not a coder originally. But you want, where are you at? What have you learnt? Yep. What are you doing? Why?
Believe it or not, kite surfing can get a little bit monotonous after doing a year of it. So I was like, right, what's next? And so I jumped into vibe coding. Maybe a little bit of backstory on that. When I was in Arlo, one of the things about that I really focused on is KPIs and setting up KPIs. And so as you built out the team and you hand over responsibility, in order to make sure everything was running smoothly and that you could step up to that higher level, I found that setting up KPIs, for example, for tickets, time to close, I don't know, open tickets, sales, all that sort of stuff. I built the system in Google that allowed you to do all the charting, and actually it allowed you to produce board reports really succinctly, and all the data for KPIs. It was, nice traffic light sort of layout, and then it sort of fed into presentations that you could do with your team on how your results are and a bunch of other stuff. I built this KPI tool / board reporting / presentation / dashboards around the office and everything. And I always thought, man, there's another business opportunity there, because I'd never really seen a good reporting tool. And then I thought, actually, if we added KPIs with, say, your business plan, your OKRs and your key initiatives, and pulled it together, that would be a really cool product. And then someone showed me this vibe coding, this Lovable product.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You told me about that too.
Yeah. And so I thought, let's check this out. So I jumped on it. And for those of you who don't know, it's basically a prompt. You build an app with a prompt, just one prompt. And it builds the fully featured app, right? With proper front end and a back end database as well, all integrated. And I jumped on it and I thought, this is just phenomenal. It's unbelievable. Like, here I can build this thing. So that's what I did for about 6 months. And it was a really cool journey to see just how amazing this AI is, but how friggin' frustrating it was at the start, right? You type a prompt and you say, I don't know, build me this form. There's a bit more detail than that, but let's keep it simple. And then it'll say, yes, I know how to build this form. It's I'll do 6 phases. Do you want me to start at phase 1? And you go, yes, start phase 1. And it would say, okay, and it would go off and it would come back and yes, that's done. And you go, can you confirm that you've delivered all the items in phase 1? And it would go, I've only converted actually 2 out of 10. I'm sort of, what are you doing? So like you'd tell it to do something and it would only even do a fraction of what you'd asked. And there would be bugs everywhere. And it was just, I was banging my head against this thing and thinking this AI stuff is just not worth the pain that it was putting me through. But as I persisted, because you have to be quite a persistent person, it's my nature to be persistent, never to give up, I just kept on going and going. And then over time, in that 6 months, and this is pretty recent, right? So the last 8 months in terms of timeframes, it was staggering, the improvement in AI.
Right, yeah.
It was just amazing.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I finished off, I would say, build this complex chart feature, I want these settings, and would say that's going to be a 10-phase process. And I'd say, do it. And it would do the 10 phases and it would get everything sorted.
Right.
So I think the big thing there is that AI coding, it's not perfect and you're going to hear all that. You've got to be careful about what code it's creating. But one of the things I realized is that Lovable, people sort of thought, oh, that's just for mocking up concepts. And it was kind of at the start. But I'd seen what Lovable was doing. I was thinking, no, these guys are doing something deeper than that. This is not just for user stories or UI. They're actually building a platform to build applications. And it's really interesting if you look at it now. That's exactly, you get a marketplace for applications. They are far more than just, you get an idea and test an idea and concept. But some of the things I learnt along the process was, one of them was building a components library to get technical about it. And again, I'm not a developer, but I knew that most applications are made up of little components, multiple components that are built together like a table, a form, and so forth. What I did is every time I built a component, I'd create a component library page. I created a library which is searchable, and I'd get the AI. I'd say, okay, you've just built, a task list. I want you to build a page explaining to devs how it works. I want you to do some mock-ups and finish it. So in an event system, you've got different date formats. You've got calculations for date ranges. So I managed to get the system to create functions to do those calculations. And then I'd go, okay, now create a page in the component library describing how those functions work and show examples. It's amazing. It's literally just like exactly what I just described in a prompt, and it builds it. As it builds the page, it does the examples, and you uncover sort of problems, like if a duration is measured in weeks, Is it one where it starts on Wednesday, finished on Wednesday, or is it 2 weeks?
Right.
Dates and times are really complex when you get into them. And so that process of building a page in a component library and building examples not only help you actually evolve whether it's a function or a component, but beyond that, when you start to build other parts of the application, you tell it to, okay, we're about to build this new entity. I want you to look at this page, which tells you how to create CRUDs, which is a technical term, but you're getting the AI to learn from what it's built in the past or know what it's got there in the system to build the next thing. So, yeah, that's I'm getting a bit technical there, but that was just an item that uncovered.
And what do you think this all means for SaaS companies, software as a service companies like Arlo?
Yeah, like Arlo. Well, I think we've got about 1 to 2 years where you've still got quite a big moat. And that moat is brand, customers, and revenue, right? So what I'm talking about is competition from another person building a competing product to Arlo, right? So if we go down that angle, in terms of what it means from Arlo's perspective, hey guys, you've got a short space of time, but you've actually got a pretty big moat there. It takes a hell of a long time to build, 50 million ARR or something. It's not done over time. And then when you've got a lot of money coming in, you've got options and you can invest. So I think there's this real chance. It's still very hard for startups who are using vibe coding to build products that compete with existing products because of that big moat that's around it. But there's no doubt a big opportunity for companies like Arlo to just use the AI tools in creating functionality much quicker. Yeah. And that's what they're doing, right? Yeah. There's opportunities for software, obviously, for software development, man, but there's opportunities everywhere. I'm sure you guys have got. It's just amazing. Like I signed a contract the other day, employment contract, and you just put it into ChatGPT, and it's amazing just how effective it is. I think you still have to be, pretty switched on to understand what you're looking for and how to dig deeper into maybe some of the feedback you get. But isn't it amazing if you guys...
Oh, for sure. I mean, you've got to have it aligned as part of your journey when you're using chat. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it being used badly, and I think you've got to be careful. But in saying that, yeah, you're right. For you, it's an efficiency tool. Yeah.
I think, that's where it's going to be interesting where you've got a lot of experience behind you and the fundamentals. So I know the fundamentals of what an employment contract should look like. And so if you've got that base knowledge, then it's super powerful because you've effectively got a lawyer sitting next to you that you can consult. I was doing setting up my business from a consulting perspective and using AI for tax consultancy, and it was just amazing. But of course, I had to have a foundational knowledge.
Sure, that's right.
But yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
isn't
but I see it like you. It's just opportunities everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, we're sort of running out of time, so we normally end podcasts with rapid fire questions. Can we throw a few your way?
Go on.
Okay, so let's some questions. Adrian, got any?
Okay, well, first of all, favourite metric in a SaaS company?
Net MMR.
Want to explain that to people, what that means and why?
Recurring revenue. So the net is your sales plus your expansion less your churn.
Got it.
Yeah, live and breathe it. Net MMR.
Net revenue retention.
Yep. Yeah. It's like a mumble. I've got another one though. Best efficiency tool that you find?
Google Docs. And I think I say that because I jumped on that in the early days. Yeah. And the transformation in the early days was just phenomenal.
Right.
Sales or doing a team presentation. Mm-hmm. Remember the days where you had to sort of, are you finishing the doc?
Jump
what
out version is it?
I've got, what version are we doing? Oh, who's there? And then
someone close it.
Oh man, so I just love the collaboration.
Yeah, you're right.
I 100% agree. I just thought collaboration on Google Docs was a total breakthrough.
Oh,
and so few people understood it. But that's just like PowerPoint. I'm like, yeah, it's like PowerPoint, except 3 people can work on the same thing at the same time. To provide, you know what I mean? Like, I failed to communicate that to so many people.
Really?
I took a long time getting the accountants to realise that Google Sheets is actually still pretty good. They're like, I don't ever Google Sheets, but actually I managed to convince them that actually there's a place and time for it.
Is there a book that's influenced you, particularly on the business side, but maybe not?
I just finished reading Richard Branson, actually.
What, biography?
Yeah. And that's quite inspiring. I love his enthusiasm and his positivity and his he's a real genuine person. I think really quite motivating. I also like, the biographies are pretty good, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Amazon, all those ones. I think it gives you a bit of insight into some of the, the most successful entrepreneurs. Not that you initially emulate them all, but they're really interesting reads.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
there is nuggets in there too as well.
If there's a single trait you would look for in someone to join your startup in the early days, what might that be? Single one.
Passion. Yeah, just they're out there to get shit done, to have passion, to do something in this world, to make it happen. Yeah.
Now, because Troy's away, we can ask this question and we don't really care. But apart from us, favourite podcast? Or recommended, thinking when people stop listening to this, they're going to crack into another?
I use YouTube a lot, and I think it does tend to feed you, once you start to train it starts to tend to feed you a lot of good content, and so it's not necessarily just one podcast, but, it starts to feed you a bunch of different podcasts and interesting information. Yeah.
Best non-answer ever.
Yeah, that's right.
So as a last question, advice to your 17-year-old self learning to use your mum's sewing machine, in terms of, here's a piece of advice that will serve you well for the trajectory of your entrepreneurial life or your startup life. What would that piece of advice be?
I'm duplicating it. Never lose your passion, never lose your drive. Just, always have self-belief in what you can do.
Yeah.
I think that's the foundation for success, really, or one of them.
Well, what a great way to end this conversation. Thank you for joining us, John.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
See you next time. Hey, well, that was great getting John on.
Yeah. Look, I think the thing about John is just the story behind the creativity that he had was he born like that? It sounds like he was born into the right family. His natural aptitude around and passion and creativity took him to what he really wanted to know and sort of be part of, which was growing something. And we've all got stories where we've worked in corporate jobs and kind of gone, not really me, but he learned from something and he took it to the next level, which I loved.
Yeah, same here. And and I think, again, the essence of passion, which you just brought up, and he obviously mentioned, passion is just such an important human trait, not just in startups, which we love, but actually having a fulfilling life. I think passion is so important. So glad John told us his story.
I think the thing about these interviews is we want to, and look, please give us feedback if you want to around this as well, but we really want to bring the stories to life, because we all know what it's like in the beginning where you're like, have I got the tenacity to do this? Do I have the drive, the passion? Can I do this? And not all the stories was easy. It was amazing. And we need to make sure that people who are listening and questioning and feeling a little bit lonely in that space right now are thinking, okay, listen, remember what John said, or remember what time, that time I listened to that podcast and someone said something. I think that's what I want us to be getting across as well. So John nailed that for us, and I'm hoping that everyone really has enjoyed that as much as I did.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today on Startup Theatre. We'll see you next time.